This holiday season has already been a little bit stressful. We went away for Thanksgiving and I had to go back to Vancouver for a last-minute family thing. And between that travel and figuring out what my kids want for Christmas and hosting and holiday band concerts and last-minute plans, let's be honest, money stress, it's really easy to lose track of where your cash is actually going. That's why we've been using Monarch. Rated Wall Street Journal's best budgeting app of 2025, Monarch is an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in a clean dashboard on your phone or laptop. Right now, I'm keeping an eye on our holiday spending categories so we don't start the new year with a debt hangover. Monarch lets you link everything, checking, investments, retirement, even property value, so you can see your true net worth and stay on top of your year-end priorities. Nippy and I use it for quick weekly money check-ins, which has made financial conversations way easier and far less stressful. Thank you, Monarch. Ignoring your finances completely can get expensive fast. If you don't pay attention, you might miss chances to save more, invest smarter, or move closer to big goals. One of ours is buying a home in the next year, so we got to get on top of it. And Monarch keeps you informed even in the chaos of the holidays. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code CULTY at monarch.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarch.com with code CULTY. Happy holidays.
This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered legal, medical, or mental health advice. The views and opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the podcast and are not intended to malign any religion, group, club, organization, business, individual, anyone, or anything.
I'm Sarah Edmondson.
And I'm Anthony Nippy Ames, and this is A Little Bit Culty.
We woke up from a cult, and that journey was captured in The Vow on HBO and in my memoir, Scarred.
Now, in this podcast, we break down the shame and secrets that make these experiences so destructive with honest conversations on how seemingly benign groups can cross into the cultiverse and how to spot and recover from trouble if it happens to you.
Each week, we bring in experts, survivors, and whistleblowers to explore red flags, resilience, and even share a few laughs, because sometimes you gotta laugh.
Subscribe to our Patreon for early and ad-free listening, some live Q&A, and exclusive content at patreon.com/alittlebitculty.
Welcome to Season 8 of A Little Bit Culty. Welcome back to Part 2 with domestic abuse survivor, martial artist, and women's self-defense teacher, Elicia Ybarra.
If you haven't listened to the first part, you know what to do.
How do you relearn your body, your boundaries, and your sense of worth after years of coercion, abuse, and being taught to override your own instincts?
In Part 2, we go deeper into what healing really takes. Elicia opened up about the moment she finally understood she'd been traumatized, not through documentaries or hindsight, but through her body, and how therapy helped her recognize triggers, reclaim her nervous system, and rebuild her life from the inside out.
We talk about why most self-defense training misses the point, how cult-like dynamics show up in martial arts studios, coaching environments, and anywhere authority goes unchecked, and why teaching women and kids about boundaries is just as critical as teaching them how to throw a punch.
Elicia also breaks down the sobering statistics around sexual assault, the realities of reporting, and why prevention has to start long before anything turns physical.
This episode is practical, powerful, and validating, especially for survivors who've ever been told that they should have fought harder or known better or spoken up sooner, because sometimes the most radical act of self-defense is finally trusting yourself.
Here's Part 2 with Elicia Ybarra.
In your therapy and doing the work that you did after you realized you needed to, was it just like seeing the cult documentaries that you were able to look at your experience growing up with a new lens? Or how did that come about?
So I didn't realize I was victimized even after that. I couldn't understand why I identified so much like with you and with India, I think her name is, and with all of the girls from Surviving R. Kelly. I was like, I'm not a victim. Like I could beat anybody up that messes with me. There's no way. And the way I figured it out was when I was developing my curriculum, I kept having what I now know are triggers. At the time, I didn't know what triggers were. And so every time I would start to learn how to get out of a chokehold or strangulation, I would start to kind of freak out. Like I would get a panic attack. And so my reaction to that without any therapy was I'm going to learn every single way to get out of a chokehold. That way nobody can ever put me in one again. And then all of these triggers will disappear. That did not work. It ended up with me not being able to be touched by anyone, including my son. I ended up reliving that strangulation of almost losing my life over and over again. And my husband, we were like at a point where we were ready to separate. You know, I was going through all of this. I was trying to build this women's self-defense program. I was taking a lot of the anger out on him. And I told him, you know, you don't listen to me. Let's go to marriage counseling. And he was like, I'll tell you what, you go to therapy first. And if in 6 months we're still having these problems, we'll go to marriage counseling. And I was like, okay, deal. And so I found an EMDR trauma-informed therapist, which I didn't know what that was at the time. I just thought she was pretty. And I was like, if I have to sit and talk to someone, at least I'm going to talk to someone who's pretty. So I went into the therapy session, and within about a month, all of my problems with my husband had kind of dissipated, and I had realized what triggers were. She taught me how to use a container. She taught me the calm down and grounding techniques. And I was able to understand that what was happening to me is I was putting myself in reliving that trauma over and over again. And then I started to truly understand what trauma and triggers were and kind of what we as women and trauma survivors in general were up against. And that was when I changed the dynamic of my curriculum from being mainly physical to being much more about boundaries, situational awareness, and recognizing red flags.
Amazing.
That's great.
But first of all, I wish you were in Atlanta because I want to take this. I want to take this training very badly. But maybe you'll have to come visit. I'll get some of my girlfriends together. But yeah, tell us more about the curriculum and what are your main, obviously you can't teach it here, but so give us that overview.
Absolutely. So I developed my curriculum to be just an introduction 2-hour class and then to be week-long classes if you want to continue. But essentially what I found was that most women have never thrown a punch. They've never had to defend themselves. And if they've ever been in an abusive situation, they have been the victim of abuse. So they didn't really know how to fight back. So I start my classes with a statistic. And the statistic is, according to the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network, 975 perpetrators out of every 1,000 sexual assaults will walk free.
What?
I'll say it one more time. According to the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network, 975 perpetrators of sexual assault out of every 1,000 sexual assault cases will walk free. And the way that breaks down is 310 of those will be reported to police, which means 690 will never even see the inside of a police station. Out of those 310, only 50 will lead to an arrest. And out of those 50 that lead to arrest, only 28 will be convicted of a felony. Out of that 28, only 25 will be incarcerated. So when we're talking about that, we're thinking there's 84,765 rape incidences per 100,000 people in the United States at any given time. And 975 out of every 1,000 of those are walking free. And then to exasperate that further, according to the Department of Justice, right, a teen that starts sexually assaulting in his teens and goes on untreated, a lot of people, even those 25 that are convicted, are given very minimal sentences, less than 5 years on average.
That's really surprising because in these cases, is there evidence of physical abuse and they're getting off?
I'm not sure. It doesn't go far into that far into it.
Reason I ask is because reason our case got to where it did is because there was physical abuse and it was tangible. But that was all after years of emotional abuse. And I've found in my experience, it's very difficult to prove emotional abuse. It's hard to come up with forensics that prove that.
Yeah.
So not to take away from those numbers, but I just feel like it's such about what you can prove and emotional coercion and stuff. We're not there yet legally, law enforcement wise, where we can have open and shut cases like that.
No. And there's just a bias against victimization anyway. What I've found is it's much easier to hold the victim accountable for what happened to them than hold the perpetrator accountable for what they did.
And then there's that.
And so in that statistic specifically, there is physical evidence because it's investigated to the point where the prosecutor can convict. And usually the prosecutor will not take on a case if there's not physical evidence.
Yeah.
So, and there's just a bias, right? 690 victims don't even come forward.
Yeah. Why would you put yourself through that?
Yeah.
with those statistics, knowing that the incentives often protect the perpetrator and your chances of winning are over. You're going through trauma and going through a crisis like a case, just throw shrapnel through your central nervous system. Like, why would you do it? You would get on with your life. That your time and energy is probably best spent healing yourself than trying to go for justice.
I agree. I wonder if that's changed since, Me Too. And I wonder when these stats are from, because I feel like people are sharing their stories and coming forward more, and there's less shame about being abused than there was even, 15, 20 years ago.
Oh, absolutely. I know that this statistic is a few years old, but it's still the one that's on the website because I check it every year to make sure that it's not updated. So I'm not saying the wrong numbers.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
it's still important. It's still relevant and doesn't.
Even if it's in the last 5 years, it's still relevant.
Mm-hmm. It's still relevant. I'm curious to know if the zeitgeist has fostered it.
It's a hard one to swallow.
It's a hard one to swallow.
It's crazy.
I'm wondering, in your classes, how do you bridge the gap between, learning a physical defense move and actually believing I'm worth defending or I'm allowed to say no? Do you cover that?
Yeah, I do. So I actually have my class. The way that it's organized, right, is I say these statistics up front. I always have a trigger warning because at least one person gets completely triggered and I have to kind of step away and give them the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 reset. And then I go into the red flags you should look for. And then after I go into the red flags to look for, I go into the abusive behaviors to look for. And then I move from there into how to set boundaries, what boundaries are. A lot of people don't think that there's more than one boundary. They're like, it's a physical boundary. My space bubble is my boundary. They don't understand that as humans and as people, we are allowed to set things like emotional boundaries, time boundaries, right? Social boundaries. And that in order to keep ourselves safe, we actually have to set all of those boundaries for ourselves so we know where our limit is. And the one thing I always say is look, a boundary is just a line of what you will and won't allow. And the moment that you draw that line, you become acutely aware when somebody is pushing that line. And the more anchored you are in why you have those lines set, the less likely you are to disregard your boundaries in favor of, being gaslit or being manipulated. And so I really spend the first about hour just talking through the actual emotional ways of being defensive, how to protect your mental and emotional space. And we call it the think, yell, run, fight, tell, right? Think is your situational awareness, your intuition. It's that first weird feeling you get, the hair on the back of your neck standing up. That's your first line of defense. If you can walk out of a dangerous situation at that, you're safe. The second is yell, your language, tone, and posture. How you handle yourself tells perpetrators whether you're going to be an easy victim or you're going to be a harder victim. You're going to fight back. And then we go into run. Where's your escapes? How do you get out of the danger, right? And from there, we go to fight, those physical tools. And I keep the physical tools extremely simple. What to hit, where to hit, who to hit, and how to hit. And that's it. We're not doing some Marvel Black Widow ninja flips, right? I always thought when I defended myself against my abuser, I was going to do some super cool shit, guys. I did not.
Sounds like you just hit the nose.
Yep, I did a palm strike right to the nose. This thing and then I have all of the women break a board with the palm strike so that they know that they can break something, because the board that I have them break is the equivalent of breaking a nose. So after we do a lot of the techniques and a lot of that, then I have them break a board, and we end with them breaking a board so that now their confidence is there. And I encourage them to go get more training. And then I offer a free e-guide that tells them what to look for and how to find a good school and not get some egotistical ass hat named Chad that's a muscle man that's just going to use you to boost his ego from MMA down the street.
Why are they all named Chad? That's what I want to know. Or Brad.
You know what? Chad, Brad.
Sorry, guys. Named Chad and Brad.
Chad.
We're losing all our male members named Chad and Brad right now.
Sorry, Brad. I'm sure you're great.
All two of them.
Now for something a little less culty. A quick sponsor message. You've probably heard us talk about Hungry Root before, so you know how much we love it because it truly simplifies our lives. As busy parents, it's been such a game changer for saving cooking time and reducing stress to do all of our weekly food shopping with Hungry Root. We always love the groceries and the snacks that they choose out for us, but I specifically love how they tailor it to our needs. Like, as you probably know, I'm doing the keto-ish thing. So I love the grilled turkey tenderloin with the pesto grilled veggies. Yum. Hungry Root now has over 50,000 chef-crafted recipes to pick from every week. That's hot. With tons ready in 15 minutes or less, plus more than 1,000 grocery items, smoothies, sweets, kid snacks, salad kits, ready-to-eat meals, and supplements. It's ridiculously easy to feed everyone's taste and nutrition goals. They also keep quality front and center, screening out over 200 additives, sourcing out high-quality meat and seafood with no hormones or antibiotics, offering organic produce, and stocking trusted brands. If your New Year's resolution is to finally dial in healthy eating, Hungry Root makes it almost effortless to get started and actually stick with it by combining recipes, better-for-you groceries, and smart personalization in one place. It's truly brilliant. I love that everything that I order from Hungry Root fits my needs. I don't have to send anything back. It's totally tailored to me and my goals and my family, and makes things so convenient. You are going to love Hungry Root as much as I do. For a limited time, get 40% off your first box, plus get a free item in every box for life. Go to hungryroot.com/culty and use code culty. That's hungryroot.com/culty, code culty to get 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life. Enjoy.
With so many options, why choose Arizona State University?
For me, the only online option was ASU because of the quality. Their faculty was really involved with their students and care about your personal journey. The dedication to my personal development from my professors, that's been extremely valuable to me.
Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Explore more than 350 plus undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
Sponsor break's done. Back for more culty stories.
Well, one of the things I like, you're training them or they're training you in your relationships, right?
Yeah.
If you don't set a boundary, they've trained you that this is where they're willing to walk.
One of the things I actually say in that is like when you don't have boundaries in your life, and I learned this the hard way by not having any boundaries, other people in your life will set those boundaries for you, and it will never be for your benefit. It will always be, even if they have your best interests at heart, for their benefit. Always. There's never going to be somebody who's like, you know what, let me make it harder on myself and easier on you. It's just not, that doesn't work. And so I teach that. And I always teach women like, hey, if, we always hear with women, like, what's the red flags you're attracted to? You have a bad taste in men. And I always tell them, you need to look at it as what type of abuse you're comfortable with. And when you look at it that way, you realize, oh, okay, this is the type of abuse that I'm more comfortable with. This is what I need to look out for.
So if we have listeners who are wanting to put their kids in martial arts or they're in martial arts, what are the red flags you share with choosing a studio and avoiding the Chad in the tank top?
Chad in the tank top. First, don't put your kids in MMA. Like, that's just my opinion as a martial artist. But I do think MMA just kind of brings all of the negative of martial arts and mixes them all.
So no MMA, but you're thinking like Taekwondo. What do you recommend?
Jiu-jitsu.
Taekwondo, jiu-jitsu, I love. We're actually putting my son in jiu-jitsu. And if you're going into a jiu-jitsu school, the thing that I always tell parents to look out, one is how the instructor interacts with the children. Like, is he very touchy? Is he not very touchy? Like, how does he interact with the adults? And then also, how does he handle criticism? Like, go look at his 1-star reviews, because there's always going to be one, and see how he replied. And that will tell you a lot about an instructor, because one of the things about the martial arts industry is that we take these instructors who we don't really know what their credentials actually are, because there's no real verification for credentials, right? I could say I'm an 8th Dan black belt. I could say I'm a 5th Dan. Nobody really knows what I mean. They only know what black belt is. And so you take these, usually men, because the men are the ones who own them, and you put them on pedestals where everyone is calling them master and everyone is calling them sir and everyone is bowing to them. And one of the things that I tell all of my adult students to look out for in the martial arts industry is the ones that let the ego get to their head, the ones that won't take any type of criticism, the ones that walk with an air of arrogance and not confidence. And the way you see that is the way that they interact with people who disagree with them. A lot of times, these martial arts instructors are taught that, everyone is going to do what they say. Like if I'm a master and I tell my student to do 25 push-ups, it doesn't matter why I'm telling him to do 25 push-ups. He will do them. And the thing that is dangerous about any martial art is you are taught that you're going to be uncomfortable.
Yep.
Your mind is going to, and your gut is going to push against what you're being taught, and that your instructor has your best interests. So from a very young age, I was so vulnerable because I was taught to disregard my own boundaries and my own feelings in favor of these instructors who had my best interests at heart and knew better than me. And so if you're going to put your child in martial art, do your research on the person. I would run a background check personally because of my background. There's also a new business out. It's called Safe Academy, and they run background checks, and some schools are getting certified by them because all of their instructors are ran through the Safe Academy, and they get background checks and all of that done. So you know who your child's being trained with.
We should put that in the show notes.
Yeah, Safe Academy.
I am going to send you a thank you for being on the podcast and send you a signed copy of Scarred, which is my journey through NXIVM, but also you'll see a lot of correlations because the very first day of the 5-day, and I know Nippy and all the participants had this experience. What we were told is that you're going to feel uncomfortable, and that's the whole point, to push through your issues. But really, the more to thrive in that system, and it sounds like
there's also truth to that.
Yeah,
that's the problem.
There is some truth in that. Anybody going through that curriculum is going to have those experiences of wanting to push up to like say, hey, this is not right. But if you're signing up for growing in that system, whether it's martial arts or NXIVM or personal development or coaching or whatever, the yoga teacher training, basically the more obedient you are, the more you do the 20 push-ups quicker,
it's rewarded
faster, without questioning, the more reward there it is for that. That's a real red flag.
Yeah, I was always in trouble because I always questioned everything. I was like, why do I have to do 25 push-ups? What's going on? And so like I had ADHD and I didn't know. So I had very bad impulse control. So like when I wouldn't immediately do what I was told, I was constantly in trouble. Also, I'm a big smart ass. So I would just like say whatever came to my mind. And that would kind of get me in trouble a lot too.
I have a little bit of that.
I have heard.
You wouldn't have probably done too well in NXIVM because you would have been, there was a term, it was called either anti-key, like if you had a lot of impulse control issues and like that was a problem, you had to learn how to be like still in yourself.
I would have gotten along with
you guys would have gotten along. Nippy
sure.
was also very, well, you were the bit of the class clown.
Well, I couldn't sit still to that shit after a while too. So it was...
Oh, yeah. Like, I thought about it and I was like, yeah, if Sarah would have tried to sell me that, I probably would have 100% signed up.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I feel like if you would have brought me in and I would have done one of those, because I was already trained and conditioned to believe a lot of that. I mean, I would have been in trouble a lot, but I probably would have.
Absolutely. That's probably why you related when you saw the vow, because there is a certain kind of, I think, personality type that thrives in the measurable. Like for us, it was the straight path, and for you, it was martial arts. The like, if I do this, then I can get here, and it gives you sort of like a roadmap to grow. And I think that there's something that like either people love that or they just don't. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like that didn't really do much for you.
My self-worth.
You had more self-worth than we did.
Well, you measure your self-worth.
What are you saying about
through
us?
That? No. Well, I'll tell
you'd already done it. No, it's true. I know I was joking, but you'd already done it through sports.
Yeah, my self-worth was measured for me personally based on my capacity to perform and my utility.
Yeah.
I didn't see this as a place that was valuable in that way. You saw it as...
I didn't have that self-worth because I didn't have anything else measurable to measure it on.
Yeah. And I also, there was just cracks in it, right? And there was cracks in it. It didn't have its credibility for me after a while. Why this story to me is important is because this isn't a big cult story. It's an example of how coercion can happen right around the corner from you in a jiu-jitsu class, martial arts class, or anywhere. So I think linking those two things about how cult-like tactics, a little bit culty, hence the name of the podcast, are valuable stories. So thank you very much for sharing. I learned something today.
Absolutely. I mean, thank you for having me. I was like, I remember filling out the application like 10 times. Like, how do I say what I need to say in this application so they understand what I'm trying to say? And finally, when I said it in, I was like, huh.
You did it. It took us a minute, but we figured it out. And you
also,
know,
we got a lot to go through. So.
Well, we do. And for anyone listening who's like, oh, why haven't they gotten back to us? We have like hundreds of intakes, and some of them are.
But we do look at them. We
do look at them, but there was like a good 6 months where they were going somewhere accidentally where nobody was looking at them. And sometimes it's just like, there's always a fine line for us between finding somebody who, you know, has a story that we can, if we can't check it, Like if you were naming your person, we'd have to check it, right? Like but we're not investigative reporters. So if you're not naming your person, it's actually easier for us because there's no
legal ramifications.
Or it has to be something that's already out there and like everybody knows is actually a thing, like the abuser's in jail, like in our case.
Also,
right?
we get a lot of one person will do an episode on something, and that one person, because they did it, gives other people the courage to come out. And so we don't want to do 4 in the same thing right after each other. We have to space them out. But
I'm glad that you came on because I feel like this is very practical too. Like this is something that we, as parents who have kids in programs, not just martial arts, it's any sports where there's a coach, you're paying them to train your child. There are very specific tells, and we've done a couple other episodes. Perhaps we'll link them. One with Amy Saltzman. It might be somebody for you to connect with.
For sure.
She's got How to Spot a Spider. It's a program for teaching kids and parents what to look for with, abusers in the coaching industry of sports. And we did another episode with some Canadian gymnast women and also Grace French, who would be good for you to connect with, I don't remember her name of her current company, was Army of Survivors. And she was one of the, Larry Nassar survivors and whistleblowers.
Let's take a break from the Cultiverse. Here's a word from our sponsors. Thanks for listening, everyone. Now let's dive back into the Cultiverse.
When I started going out public with my story, I didn't really intend to either. I was more of like, I'm just going to teach this and I'm not really going to tell anybody why. But then I realized that so many women feel like they need to have the physical self-defense, that they don't really do the emotional and mental protection of their space. And so I started opening up more and more. And now I've had thousands of women come to me and tell me their stories of abuse by coaches or pastors or, organizers, like any mentors. I think that, as a parent now, I have a 7-year-old. It's important for me to be very involved so that I know every adult that's in my child's life, because
your story is your asset too.
Yeah, if you're just dropping your son off or your daughter off and you're not knowing the people that are interacting with them, it makes them so much more likely to face abuse. I was a drop-off kid. That also made me very vulnerable. My parents would just drop me off and leave me at martial arts for several hours. And then if something does happen, it becomes the child against the adults. And most often the adult usually can explain themselves better, can articulate better. So it's easier to believe the adult versus believing the child. And so, if any parents are listening and they want to know how to protect their children, the number one rule is teach your child adults don't keep secrets with children. Like, if you just keep that as a general rule, your child will know something's wrong. And also, adults shouldn't have chats and conversations with your child without you involved. Like, those two rules right there will help your child be much less vulnerable to abuse.
Right.
Anything else you'd tell your child?
I'm very open with him. Like, we don't allow him to have any social media. I don't post him. Nobody has really seen any pictures of my son. And I'm very upfront. Like, he knows about the predators online. He knows about that new 764 cult that is prevalent. I've done a lot of research into that. He knows when somebody touches his private areas. He never gets in trouble for expressing boundaries with me. Like, I always ask for a hug. I always ask to give him a kiss. And if he says no, I respect it. And that way,
so important.
If anybody doesn't respect it, right, then he comes to me and he says, Mom, I told, this person not to give me a hug and they did it anyway. And then I go and handle it. And I always reward him. I'm like, here's some ice cream, right? Good for you. Thanks for coming to me. Because I think it's important to be the first people as parents that respect our child's boundaries. Like, I knock on his door before I go in. He understands that there's consequences to your actions, but we're a truthful family. And I think that's really what's important, is creating that open communication with your child at a young age, trusting them and really not judging or reprimanding them when they feel like they did something wrong, explaining. My child, I'm a little bit more open with because of the work that I do. It tends to overhear things and I don't hide anything from him. I did tell him probably don't talk about it at school.
Yeah. But just knocking on the door That's
Yeah.
such an important. I feel like I can just walk into my kid's room, but I think knocking on the door is
Knocking on the door is a
important.
big deal.
And
that's a strong showing.
we should probably teach them to do that with us.
Yeah,
as
that'd
well.
be nice.
That's
be
next
nice.
up. We were doing the secret
We're
thing.
going to do it first.
Yeah, we'll just start with the door knocking. How do you think reclaiming martial arts on your own terms has helped you redefine strength and empowerment?
I think taking all of that trauma and that pain that was so toxic and poisonous in my body for so long and revamping it into a way to turn my story into a lesson for other people has been probably the most empowering thing that I've done. Like, I took all of the trauma I went through and I created a realistic, real type of curriculum that women can follow that will help them understand how abuse happens and how to avoid abuse. And, not only that, but also my whole spiel is all pink, right? My brand is pink. And I used to get in trouble for wearing pink all the time. So it's very empowering every time I put on one of my blazers or I wear my pink uniform, because I'm able to finally, after so many years, combine strength and beauty in a way that I feel powerful in. And I don't care what, the men in the martial arts industry scoff at anymore. Like, I don't need their judgment. And I think that's really important. That's how I get through every day, is I know what I'm doing is helping at least one person every time they hear my story.
Do you have male advocates? Do you have people that are aligned with you? And have you been able to reach men?
Absolutely. The funny thing is, building my business, not just my husband, who is my main advocate, but also the master, the Hapkido master that helped me build my curriculum is a man that has known me since I was 18 years old. As a matter of fact, I met him in that culty environment. One of my former students that I had started training when he was 8 years old, I'm very close friends with his family. He was kind of my Yuki and my test dummy when I was practicing all these things. And so a lot of good, solid, healthy, masculine men have come forward to be like, I love what you're doing. You're doing great things.
That's great.
I should take your class. It's usually the insecure, toxic masculinity type of feelings or type of people that come and are like, oh yeah, right, that won't work, or oh, that'll never work. Like, men that are really comfortable with themselves and their masculinity tend to really like what I'm doing. They think I'm helping women.
Yeah, they're protectors. They're protectors,
the real
and they
protectors.
see that you're doing the same thing. Yeah.
The real ones, not the faux ones.
Yeah, no, I mean, they're out there. My final question, you're 5'2", your ex is 6'4", whatever he was. You broke his nose and cracked 2 ribs. It's just been in the back of my head the whole time. How'd you do that? Tell me what you did there.
So he was holding me up at face level and he was strangling me up against the wall. So he had thrown
I don't
me.
want you to relive the trauma. Sorry.
I'm okay. I'm fine to talk about it. I talk about it all the time now.
Okay.
He, when he threw me down the hallway, my head embedded into the drywall, and then he was grabbing me and my head was hitting the back of the drywall. And when he was close to me, right? He wasn't pushed, his arms weren't pushed all the way out. He was close in my face. So when he kicked my dog, my arm just came up and hit him. And the moment that I did that, it blurred his vision and it made blood come out, and that distracted him. And then I did 2, I think, punches. I don't know if they were punches or palm strikes. But when his arms went up, I started hitting him in the ribs and he doubled over and I kneed him in the face and he fell onto the ground. And then I got on top of him and I started hitting him in the face as many times as I could before the cops showed up.
I'm not an advocate for violence here.
But at the same time, real
guilty
glad
pleasure going on with me right now.
Was there any, we never wrapped that up, but just for anyone who's curious, did he ever make an appearance again, or did he leave you alone after that?
He stalked me for about 6 months. So after I left him, I went and moved my stuff out of his house, and he began he would set out in front of my work. He would call. And then one of the things I didn't talk about that I'll just touch on really quick, because I know we're going to wrap up soon, is the financial aspect of the abuse in that relationship. A lot of things he put in my name, and he took out credit cards in my name that I wasn't aware of.
God.
Because he had all of the financial, he was the breadwinner and he had already talked me out of working. So I was just reliant on him. So when I changed my address, I started getting collection notices. And in that 18 months, he had put me about $12,000 in debt. And so I ended up having to work. I was editing film and I was doing like odd jobs to pay it all off as quick as possible. But that's one thing that we don't often talk about is the financial abuse that abuse survivors endure during that time. And so he tried to get me fired from my job. He would call nonstop to the point where they had to block his number. He would stay outside and try to like wait for me to walk to my car. I had a little 94 Suzuki Sidekick at the time, so you could like unzip the back window. I named her Flipper because if you take a corner over 25, you're going to flip her.
So Flipper with Rocky Balboa riding shotgun?
Right. Flipper with Rocky Balboa. And he put super glue in my ignition so that I couldn't go to work. And so he really kind of made my life hell for about 6 months. And then one day my dad answered the door when he was knocking on it with a shotgun and put it to his face, basically, and told him to leave me alone. And then I moved back down to Southern California shortly after that. And he came down. At one point, I saw his work truck near where I was at. He just didn't know where I was. I was always very private online, so I didn't post a lot. And that kind of scared me. But for the most part, I haven't seen him in several years.
Oh, that's good. And what about the
shotgun? That's
way
a good
to go,
move.
Dad.
Yeah.
What about the grandmaster and the chicken shit son and the Denny's bacon loving mother? What happened with them?
Breaks up with her son's freaking girlfriend. So
Denny's.
weird.
Yeah.
Okay.
What happened to them? Did they ever research?
So they own a school out whatever state they live in now. I actually, because it's such a small world, like one of my very close family, like I'm very close with their family, their oldest daughter married my ex-boyfriend. So like the woman, she's one of my very good friends. She has a picture of like my son as her grandson, but also my ex-boyfriend's children because they're also her grandsons. And so it's like this big web of just clusterfuckery because
That's unfortunate.
The martial arts industry is so small. Everyone knows everyone. And so that's one of the reasons I refuse to say any names or name the school.
Yeah.
Is because people will know who I'm talking about. Yeah, I still see him every once in a while at their family events, and we just kind of avoid each other as best possible.
Great.
Well, you seem to be handling it well and turned it into a positive. So congrats. Thank you for sharing your story with us.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you guys for inspiring me to build this freaking curriculum.
How cool to be part of your pivot point.
Yes, 100%.
Choice point.
Yeah, next year we called it Choice Point.
Yeah.
But we won't talk about that right now. Is there anything we didn't ask you that you want to say that's like burning in your heart? Any messages left?
The only thing I would say is that, like you define your self-worth. And when you start allowing other people to define your worth and value, you become susceptible to abuse. So know what that worth and value is going into any friendship, relationship, or any type of situationship.
Got it. That's very good and very helpful. And I really want to recommend this book to you that we had on our podcast, a woman that we had, Dr. Ingrid Clayton, who wrote the book on fawning, because I think that will add an extra layer to your teaching at your school. Some of the elements you probably are teaching already, just another angle at the female dynamic in terms of fight, flight, or fawn.
Yeah. I learned about those. Whew.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure you did. Amazing. Well, thank you. Oh, and by the way, Ingrid's in California. So
you're doing the ADHD.
I'm doing the ADHD, also Yenta matching everybody up. If you ever do come to Atlanta, please let us know because I would totally arrange for a class.
Oh, absolutely.
I bet Sam at the Jiu-Jitsu studio.
Sam.
What was it called? Buckhead?
Buckhead Jiu-Jitsu.
Buckhead Jiu-Jitsu. I bet you he'd let us
Sam
use
Joseph.
He's
awesome guy.
I bet you he'd let us use the studio and do a little woman's thing. So just keep that in mind.
Absolutely. I'm totally in. We'll make
just to meet Sam. He's that great.
Yeah. Great. Well, thank you so much for your time, for making sure this happened, and we'll keep in touch.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys so much for having me. This was incredible.
You're
Awesome.
incredible.
Thank you.
Keep up the good work. Well, we love that conversation.
Yeah, she's great.
We hope that you did too. Please do follow her on all the places. And
she's the one wearing pink.
Happy holidays, Happy New Year, and see you all in 2026.
Sinking down to the depths of the ocean, hanging on to the weight of my love. If I let go of it all, I could leave, but I know I won't.
We hope you're enjoying A Little Bit Culty. If so, please do show us some love. Drop a rating or leave a review. Hit subscribe on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen. And subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/alittlebitculty.
Even better, send this episode to someone who needs it. Maybe they're in a cult. Maybe they're just a little bit susceptible. Or maybe they just love a good story. Spread the word, spread the love. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.
A Little Bit Culty is a Trace 120 production.
Executive produced by Sarah Edmondson and Anthony Nippy Ames in collaboration with producer Will Rutherford at Citizens of Sound. Our co-creator is Jess Temple Tardy.
Our production coordinator is Leslie Dinsmore.
Writing by Sandra Namoto and social media marketing by Eric Swarzinski and Brooke Keene.
Our theme song, Cultivated, is by the artists John Bryant and Nigel Aslan.